But it's a heartbreaker, no doubt. And, you know, I'll always deal with waves coming in and out.
Dolly Parton is one of the most beloved and iconic figures in American music and culture. However, behind the glamour of fame is a life filled with poverty, personal loss, and emotional struggles. Despite being known for her dazzling smile, her life has not been without its share of heartbreaking tragedies. If you're curious to know what's been going on with your favorite star, let's dive in. Early life.
I grew up in a musical family. All my mother's people were very musical, all played instruments, and mostly in the churches, sang at funerals, sang at...
Dolly Parton was born Dolly Rebecca Parton on January 19, 1946, in a one-room cabin on the banks of the Little Pigeon River in Sevier County, Tennessee. She was the fourth child among 12 children born to Avi Lee and Robert Lee Parton. Her father worked as a sharecropper and later became a farmer, while her mother stayed at home to care for the family. The songstress was not one of the stars who had access to all the needed resources at a tender age. Her early life was characterized by poverty. Dolly described her family as dirt poor because they never had access to electricity or indoor plumbing, which provided an adequate water supply. She recalled bathing in the stream with homemade soap and the struggles of having a good cloth to wear. Her father's income as a farmer was only enough to feed the family. He even had to work as a construction worker to supplement the farm's small income. Despite her father's illiteracy, Parton has often commented that he was one of the most intelligent people she has ever known, particularly in business and making a profit. She admitted that she drew her strength and courage to pursue success from her father, while her musical abilities came from her mother. Although her mother was often in poor health, she still managed to keep the house and entertain her children with folklore and ancient ballads. She knew many old ballads, and her father, who was Dolly's grandfather, Jake Owens, was a Pentecostal preacher. This influenced Parton's passion for music and drew her love for the gospel genre as well. For 6 or 7 years, Parton and her family lived in their rustic, one-bedroom cabin on their small subsistence farm on Locust Ridge. It was predominantly a Pentecostal area located north of the Greenbrier Valley of the Great Smoky Mountains. Music played an important role in her early life. As a granddaughter of a pastor, she was raised in the Church of God in Cleveland, Tennessee. She began singing at the age of 6, and her earliest public performances took place in the church. At the age of 7, she began playing a homemade guitar. When she was 8, her uncle bought Dolly her first real guitar. As one of the oldest siblings among 12 children, Dolly has learned to take responsibility at a very tender age. One of her most heartfelt childhood experiences was taking care of the younger kids with her older siblings. They agreed to be a caretaker for a specific younger sibling whom they would consider their baby. So they're responsible for feeding them, rocking them to sleep, changing their diapers, and generally catering to all their needs. Dolly's first heartbreaking experience was when her own sibling, the baby she took responsibility for, died after 4 days. His death broke Dolly's heart at such a tender age, teaching her how delicate and fragile life can be. Even in her old age, she has not forgotten the bond she shared with her late brother Larry, despite it being only a short time. Her humble background revealed her strength and love in the most profound ways. One of those thoughtful experiences was when she had a severe injury at a young age. Dolly was running around near the family's rustic cabin without shoes. This is a culture common among many children in the rural South, especially during the warmer months. On this particular day, she was playing outside when she accidentally injured her foot. She had caught her toes while stepping on a piece of sharp metal or broken glass. The injury was severe, and a few of her toes were badly sliced and hanging by just a bit of skin. Due to her family's financial situation and their distance from proper medical facilities, a trip to the hospital wasn't an option. Dolly's mother, however, was known for her resourcefulness and strength. Drawing on her knowledge of home remedies and sheer maternal courage, she stepped in to help her daughter. She sterilized a needle and a common sewing thread from the house and then proceeded with the necessary steps. She calmly and carefully stitched Dolly's wounded toes back together right there in their cabin, using what she had. Amazingly, the makeshift treatment worked. The toes healed completely, and Dolly was able to walk and run again, carrying with her not just the physical scars, but the unforgettable memory of her mother's love and determination. Dolly has continued to share that memory, describing how her mother treated the injury like it was just another piece of mending she had to do. Having such a rare and rough childhood experience has not just taught Dolly how to endure pain, but has also prepared her mind for the harsh realities of life. Those childhood experiences inspired many songs she wrote about poverty. One of those was A Coat of Many Colors. This song was inspired by a memorable experience she had when she was around 8 years old. Her mother has received a bag of donated clothes from a neighbor. Among the items was a bundle of old rags and scraps of fabric in all different colors and patterns. Dolly's mother was not upset by the unkind gesture of those who donated pieces of rags to them, but instead saw something special in those leftover pieces. She decided to make a coat for her little girl to wear during the colder months. As she sat down to sew the coat by hand, she told Dolly the biblical story of Joseph and his coat of many colors. She excitedly explained how Joseph was blessed and favored by God, despite others envying and mocking him. While she was narrating the story, Dolly began to imagine her new coat as something truly precious and magical. With every patch her mother stitched, Dolly felt special. She didn't see the coat as a collection of rags, but as a symbol of love and pride. When the coat was finished, Dolly wore it proudly to school. However, she wasn't pleased with the reaction of her classmates. Instead of admiring her beautiful dress, they laughed and ridiculed her. They teased her for wearing what they called a rag coat. They failed to understand the story, the meaning, or the love that had gone into it. Dolly was heartbroken. She felt humiliated and deeply hurt by their words. It was so unfortunate that they never knew how precious her dress was to her. But despite all that, Dolly never forgot the lesson her mother had taught her. She always remembered that the coat was made with love, and that love was more valuable than gold. That moment stayed with her throughout her life, and so she crafted it in a song which she released years later in 1971. It became one of her most iconic and emotional songs, touching hearts around the world. Despite the poverty, Dolly grew up in a home filled with love and music, which laid the foundation for her songwriting. They gave her their full support to pursue a music career. Her uncle crafted a homemade guitar for her when she was only 6. She fully immersed herself in music after high school. Career.
I want you now, if you will, please, to make welcome a beautiful little lady, Miss Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton's career has spanned decades, encompassing music, acting, and philanthropy. Her music career began when she was still a little girl. While growing up, music was a natural part of her daily life. Her family was poor, but they were rich in songs, often singing together at home and even in church. Dolly's powerful voice drew so much attention, even while she was still a little girl. She started performing on local radio and TV programs in the East Tennessee area. By the time she was just 10 years old, Dolly was already a regular star on The Cass Walker Show, a popular variety show broadcast on WIVK Radio and WBIR TV in Knoxville. Many people were impressed by her performances, which earned her local celebrity status. The love she received from family and friends encouraged her to keep moving forward and never back down in her music career. Though it seems all odds were against her, a 13-year-old Dolly took a major step towards stardom. She recorded her very first single, Puppy Love, with Gold Band Records, a small independent label in Louisiana. The song was not a hit, but it was the fundamental step in her music career. It was a bold step and a big accomplishment for someone so young. This step opened more doors for her future in the music industry. The same year she released that single, Dolly received one of the greatest honors for any country artist. She performed at the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville. It was a dream come true. Her joy was not just because of the recognition, but the meaningful connection she had with many other industry experts. Backstage at the Opry, she met Johnny Cash, who was already a star by then. Johnny never gave her any material gift, but instead gave her some advice which made Dolly who she is today. He told her to always follow her instincts and trust herself concerning her career. That encouragement stayed with Dolly. It gave her the confidence to be bold, stay true to her style, and carve out her unique path in country music. In 1964, Dolly was done with her high school and moved permanently to Nashville to focus on her music career. But instead of going fully into singing and recording songs, she became a songwriter instead. She signed a deal with Combine Publishing soon after arriving. Working closely with her uncle Bill Owens, Dolly wrote several songs that went on to become hits. 2 of their songs, Put It Off Until Tomorrow and The Company You Keep, were recorded by country singer Bill Phillips and became top 10 hits in 1965. The success of these songs made her a highly sought-after songwriter who drew the attention of the likes of Kitty Wells and Hank Williams Jr. She wrote songs for them, which also became global hits. Dolly started officially recording her own songs in 1965 when she was only 19 years old. She signed a recording deal with Monument Records. This was supposed to be a major breakthrough in her music career, but her heart was broken when the record label forbade her from singing country music. They tried to market her as a pop singer, focusing on bubblegum pop tunes. Although she knew it wasn't her style, she struggled to release a few singles, but only one of them, Happy Happy Birthday Baby, made it onto the charts. And even then, it didn't break into the Billboard Hot 100. Dolly never believed that her young career was already meeting its Waterloo. Despite her love for country music, the record label didn't believe her high-pitched, unique voice was right fit for the genre. However, everything changed when she featured in Put It Off Until Tomorrow, sung by Bill Phillips with Dolly singing harmony in the background. The song became a big hit on the country charts, reaching number 6 in 1966. This success finally convinced Monument Records to let her sing country. Dolly released her first country single, Dumb Blonde, in 1967. The song did well on the country charts. Her next single, Something Fishy, did even better. Both songs were part of her debut album titled Hello, I'm Dolly, which marked the true beginning of her career as a country singer. That same year, she met musician and country music entertainer Porter Wagoner. He invited Dolly to join his organization, offering her a regular spot on The Porter Wagoner Show and in his Road Show, which are weekly syndicated television programs. This was the beginning of Dolly's journey to fame, as the show provided the right platform she needed to showcase her talent and gain the visibility she required. However, Dolly never knew what tragedy awaited her in this near adventure. It started with the audience's inability to accept Dolly as a replacement for Norma Jean. Dolly was brought in to replace Norma Jean, a popular country singer who had been on the show for years. Norma Jean had a strong fan base, and many of the show's viewers were not happy with the fact that she had left. This made some members of the audience hesitant to accept Dolly immediately. In fact, during live tapings, some fans would shout Norma Jean's name out loud, making it clear they didn't want Dolly taking her place. It was a difficult and uncomfortable situation for Dolly, who was still young and just starting out on national television. However, Porter Wagoner stood by her. He believed in her talent and continued to feature her on the program. In no time, she was able to convince the audience through her strong singing, songwriting, charm, and professionalism that she was an asset that should be treasured. Dolly won them over and became more loved than her predecessor. Because of her impressive performance on the show and how much she had won the hearts of the people, Wagoner convinced his label, RCA Victor, to sign her. This further increased her value, making her the star singer whose songs are on the lips of many. She sang numerous duets with Porter Wagoner and singles, which became global hits. Her biggest hit of this period was Jolene, released in late 1973. The song topped the country chart in February 1974 and reached the lower regions of the Hot 100. Dolly once shared how she got the inspiration for that song through a beautiful little girl with striking red hair and green eyes she met. The girl told Dolly her name was Jolene, and Dolly was immediately struck by how lovely the name sounded, so she said to the girl, "That is such a beautiful name. I'm going to write a song about you someday." That name stuck in her mind. Around that same period was a red-haired bank teller who worked at a local branch. This teller had been showing a little too much attention to her husband, Carl Dean. Whenever Carl goes to the bank, the woman working there flirts with him. This sparked jealousy and insecurity in Dolly's heart. So she took the name of the little girl and combined it with the feeling of that experience, turning it into a song. What a powerful way to write a song. This indicates that Dolly's unpleasant life experiences have consistently been reflected in her music. This also reveals that everyone feels pain, even celebrities. Their heartbreaks are mostly the inspiration behind their music. Dolly's smooth music career had a measure hitch when she opted to leave her record label. At some point, she felt she had outgrown the show and the record label. She had always aspired to be a solo artist, unaffiliated with any music group. She was already a celebrity and had a thriving music career, so she felt it was best for her to leave. However, there were also speculations about her disagreement with her boss, Parton Wagoner. It was said that Porter wanted to control her career and decisions because he felt he had found her and brought her to the limelight. He disapproved of her request to leave the record label, but it got to a point where the pressure became too much for Dolly to bear. She had to take the bold step and leave, regardless of the consequences she may face. She wrote a farewell song for Porter titled, "I Will Always Love You," which she played for him before she left. The song later became Dolly's biggest hit in history. Other music stars like Whitney Houston sang her own version, and it went wild. Porter had helped launch Dolly's career, and he felt that she was contractually obligated to continue working with him under their business agreements. He wanted Dolly to pay him a certain percentage of recording royalties, television earnings, and other income she earned during and after their partnership. Generally, he accused her of breaching the contract and sought $3 million in damages. This was a challenging moment for Dolly's career, as she felt she had fulfilled her obligations and simply wanted to move forward on her own. This lawsuit put a strain on their relationship and also affected Dolly's career. However, Dolly worked quietly with her legal team to resolve the dispute privately. She eventually chose to settle out of court to avoid further damage to their personal and professional reputations. She reportedly paid Porter a substantial amount of money to resolve the matter. The amount she paid was not disclosed for reasons best known to her. She later said, "I wanted to move on, and I thought, if I have to pay for my freedom, that's what I'll do." One could think that this experience would put a hold on Dolly's career, but she bounced back with major hits, topping charts and making waves in the country music industry. The Smoky Mountains songbird is also an actress who is featured in many blockbuster movies like 9 to 5, The Best Little Warehouse in Texas, Rhinestone, Steel Magnolias, and many more. She also made soundtracks for some of these movies. In addition to her successful career in music, television, and film, Dolly Parton is also a savvy businesswoman. She co-owns the Dollywood Company with Herschend Family Entertainment, which manages a group of family-friendly entertainment properties. These include the Dollywood Theme Park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. It is situated in the Great Smoky Mountains and attracts over 3 million visitors annually. Also, Dollywood's Splash Country is a water park located near the theme park. Dolly Parton's Stampede is also part of the Dollywood Company. It is a dinner theater attraction featuring live horse riding stunts, musical performances, and comedy. All these and many more are Dolly's business adventures. Dolly is also a philanthropist who has reached out to many children through the Dollywood Foundation. Her Imagination Library sends free books to children from birth to age 5. She also offers college scholarships to high school seniors in Sevier County and provides bonus payments and support to teachers in schools. Dolly makes significant contributions to poverty alleviation, community development, healthcare, and scientific research. Her childhood experience with poverty has inspired her to help those who are going through the same thing she went through. Now that she's 79, she's only going on tours and holidays. Despite all the tragedies she faced in her career, her life turned out to be a great success. Personal life.
The way we met was it was too ironic. It was so unlike him because he's very backwards and bashful.
Dolly has always been very private about her personal life, particularly when it comes to her romantic relationships. There was no record of her having any intimate affairs before she met Carl Dean, to whom she was married. Dolly met Carl Dean in 1994 outside the Wishy Washy Laundromat in Nashville on the first day she moved to the famous music city. Their love was instant and so magnetic. In 1966, they got married in a private ceremony after 2 years of dating. They had been together for nearly 60 years before Carl's recent passing. Their long-lasting marriage is a symbol of true love and commitment to each other. However, it wasn't without its struggles. Dolly describes her marriage as open and free, she said in a 2014 interview with the UK's Mirror. "Yes, it's an open relationship, but not sexually. And I would kill him if I thought he was doing that. He would shoot me too. At the end of the day, we love each other madly." Despite this public confession, there were still speculations of affairs they both had outside their marriage. One of which was her husband's crush on a bank teller, which inspired her to write the song Jolene, begging the lady not to take her man away from her. She was also speculated to have had an affair with her former record label boss, Porter Wagoner. This is the reason behind all the chaos they experienced during their music partnership. One of the most recent affairs she had was what she described as an affair of the heart, which nearly pushed her to take her life. In her 2017 book, Dolly on Dolly, and in interviews, she admitted that she had experienced a deep emotional relationship, possibly even an affair outside of her long-standing marriage to Carl Dean. Though Dolly and Carl have always had an unconventional but strong bond, she spoke candidly about falling in love with someone else. She never revealed the man's identity, but referred to him as an unidentified lover. The end of that relationship shattered her emotionally, leaving her with a broken heart that she said was almost unbearable. That season was tough for Dolly because it seemed all the odds were against her. Before her messy breakup with her mystery man, it was a strain on her career. She encountered trouble on the set of one of her hit films that emotionally drained her. While shooting The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas in 1982, there were reported tensions between Dolly and her co-star, Burt Reynolds. Although the movie was a commercial hit, working on the film was highly stressful for her. While both were major stars, they had very different work styles and strong personalities. The pressure of the film's production, combined with media attention and creative challenges, left Dolly emotionally drained. She described the filming experience as a nightmare, even though she remained publicly professional. All these emotional stresses began to take a toll on her body. Dolly developed serious health issues, including abdominal bleeding related to a gynecological condition. She suffered from exhaustion, stress-induced illness, and gained around 50 pounds during that time. Dolly also received death threats, which became so serious that she canceled part of her tour for her own safety. These threats added another layer of fear and pressure to an already overwhelming period in her life. The emotional, physical, and psychological pain Dolly was experiencing became unbearable. Out of frustration and despair, she took out a gun she kept in her house for burglars and seriously attempted to end her life. However, her dog Popeye interrupted her and snapped her out of it. Dolly attributed her safety from this tragic moment to her faith in God, her love for her fans, and the intervention of her dog Popeye. Another tragic experience in Dolly's personal life that she struggled to handle was her inability to bear her own children. As someone who grew up in a large family with 11 siblings, Dolly had always imagined having children of her own one day. However, tragedy struck when she was diagnosed with endometriosis in her 30s. It was a painful condition that made it impossible for her to have kids. The pain grew worse to the point that she had to make the hard decision of undergoing a partial hysterectomy. This is a surgical procedure to remove all or part of a woman's uterus. Following her surgery, Dolly entered a period of deep emotional pain. The thought of never being able to get pregnant made her depressed. She said in interviews that it felt like the loss of something she always thought would be a part of her life. Although the journey was painful, she eventually came to accept her reality and found other ways to find meaning in life. Dolly found healing by becoming a foster mother to many other children. In an interview about not having children, Dolly said, "God has a plan for everything. I think it probably was his plan for me not to have kids, so everybody's kids could be mine. If I hadn't had the freedom to work, I wouldn't have done all the things I've done." She has come to accept that heartbreak and transform it into changing the lives of other children through her initiatives. She provides scholarship support for many children, and her Imagination Library sends free books to little children. Many other donations for poverty alleviation and community development are ways in which she reaches out to underprivileged kids. Dolly Parton's experience shows how someone can turn personal pain into purpose. Aside from the heartbreaking moments she has experienced in her childhood, career, and personal life, there is also the tragic loss of loved ones over the years. First was the death of her baby brother, Larry, whom she took responsibility for at the age of 9. Dolly has said in interviews that the death of little Larry was her first introduction to death. It was an early emotional wound she carried into adulthood. In 2018, tragedy struck again as Dolly lost her brother, Floyd. He was a gifted songwriter who co-wrote several of her songs, including Rockin' Years, a duet Dolly later sang with her brother, Randy. "We'll always love him, and he will always be in our hearts," she wrote in a statement. Floyd was not just her brother, but a creative partner, and his death left a noticeable void in Dolly's musical and personal life. As if that was not enough, Dolly faced one of her hardest losses ever, which was the loss of her younger brother, Randy. Randy Parton passed away after battling cancer. Randy had been not only her brother, but also a frequent collaborator in music and performances. He sang with her, toured with her, and even performed at her theme park, Dollywood. Dolly shared, "Randy was a great singer, writer, and entertainer. He sang, played guitar, and bass in my band for many years. He's had several chart records of his own, but his duet with me on Old Flames Can't Hold a Candle to You will always be a highlight in my own career." She ended her tribute by saying, "I will always love you." The most recent heartbreaking loss Dolly experienced in her life was the loss of her husband, Carl Dean. According to a report by BBC News, Carl Dean, the longtime husband of country music icon Dolly Parton, died in March this year at the age of 82. Dean was famously private throughout his nearly 60-year marriage to Parton, which raised so many questions about their relationship. He died in Nashville, Tennessee, according to a statement she posted on social media. The tragic loss of the partner she had known for over 60 years left Dolly devastated and completely shattered. In a statement she wrote, Dolly said, "Carl and I spent many wonderful years together. Words can't do justice to the love we shared for over 60 years. Thank you for your prayers and sympathy." Throughout her career, Dolly often spoke about Carl's quiet love and steady support, referring to him as her rock and her balance. Despite Dolly's impactful life and success in her career, she was not exempt from experiencing the harsh realities of life. She has never shied away from talking about grief. She has said that her faith in God, her family, and her music are what help her cope with the heartache. While the world sees a legend, Dolly Parton is also a woman who has carried heartbreak quietly and turned it into love, strength, and enduring kindness for others. Her tragic life experiences have continued to be a story that many have drawn strength from. At 79, she's still strong, resilient, building a legacy that the next generation will learn from. What have you learned from the heartbreaking tragedy of Dolly Parton and her journey from obscurity to stardom? Can you relate to any of her experiences and connect with her pain? Please share your thoughts with us in the comments. Also, subscribe to this YouTube channel, like and share this video with your loved ones.